To see examples of what we talked about on this episode, along with further information, go to bunchofdorks.com.
Welcome everyone to
Two Dimension Podcast,
the comic book podcast
With No Direction. Two Dimension. Two Dimension. What's up, everybody? You know that song, you know this voice. It's me, Rook. And as always, the man who keeps me in order, it's Mr. Don Moore.
and I have two words.
Uh-oh.
Water monster.
That was not the two words I expected. I'm glad they weren't four-letter words. Well, actually, wait, no. First one.
And now my mind is really reeling. We had a guest that talked about hold on. We had a guest that talked about a project called Monkey. Zeo, I should have looked the name.
Zeo.
Yeah, which was great. But they mentioned a project called Water Monster. It didn't show us or tell us anything, but it was spoken about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after the episode, very kindly, she said, "Would you like to read it?" And she sent us the PDFs.
Remember, gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's an understatement. No matter what you say, it's going to be an understatement. And I had told Rook not long ago. I says, I wish that she put that out. She never published it. I says, I wish she'd publish that. I'd like a hard copy. I mean, I'd already read it. And then out of my shock, like the next week, Rook sends me a link from Kickstarter. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it is, baby.
Okay. Now, I have a Macintosh. I use an old Macintosh. I haven't upgraded my system because I used some applications on it and I don't want to buy them again. Well, now they're subscription based. So I don't go on the internet too much on that Mac. And, when Rook sent me the link, I thought, okay, I put it off. And I finally remembered it. So I used it on my iPad, went on thinking, well, it's been too long. I had 4 days left.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so I got it. And no worries. The campaign, I don't know, I think it did 6 times more than they were looking at. Rightly
That's
so.
Fantastic. I love hearing that.
But that comic, that's what I want to talk about. We both read it digitally, and I was happy. I just want a copy of it. But it starts off, it's compared to if Guillermo del Toro and another person that I'm embarrassed to say I'm not familiar with did a story, but it's about a well in the crowd in China where Zeo's from. And what blows my mind is the artist is Chilean.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, when you look at it, you think that he was Chinese. I mean, he'd have to see it that way. I'm blown away. But it starts off with your mother's always telling you, don't do this, don't go there, don't do this, and ignored it and did it anyway. We all have that story.
We absolutely do.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times both of my parents tell me not to do things. There's times where I just ignored it and did it anyway. And then you think, well, now I know why they told me that. And sometimes even in adult life. But I'm embarrassed to say, even though I laugh. But absolutely. I'm happy to get it. We've never spoke about it on the show, but I just wanted to mention it. And I'm leading up to a question with these Kickstarters, and I've asked some of the guests we've had, was if you don't get into campaign and you decide you want later or you discover it later, would you have an opportunity to buy it again? And I'm just thinking, most of them say they have extra copies. But I'm thinking, yeah, but I don't know. I guess I feel like all comics should be evergreen. And if you want it, you should be able to buy it.
Yeah.
But that's not really true. I mean, they have print runs. If you don't buy it when it comes out, you may, I mean, not always, but you may be out of luck.
Well, not only that, but you can't evergreen indie. Indie creators, they have a limited amount of available that they can get printed. So they're coveted pieces by people who are fans of, particular indie creators. Um, Honestly, I think Zio is going to be one of these creators. When she finishes Monkey, I have a feeling that, like, I don't know how people haven't stood up and taken notice, and like she's not contracted with one of the big companies yet, but absolutely fantastic writer. Her Monkey comic is full of action and wildness, which is such a difference between that and Water Monster. Water Monster has its actions, but I mean, action points, but it has, like, the story is so macabre.
Yes. Yeah, it's a completely different, I take my hat off to that. It's completely different everything to Monkey.
Mhm.
I found Monkey absolutely terrifying. I mean, it has its humorous moments too. We spoke about this on the show, but I just, it's a monkey with high intelligence and ingenuity and
And
chaos.
about zero regard for humans.
100%. I mean, it has a chaotic nature, as all monkeys do, but this one had a conniving theme to him. But Water Monster, it's poetic.
Yes,
I mean, that's I mean, both visually and verbally, and
absolutely.
absolutely beautiful. But I find, I don't know, it amazes me. Basically, everything I do is always kind of the same. I appreciate it when I see people that can work in different styles and different ways. But as an art major in college, I remember this one student, and she didn't say this disparagingly. She kind of said it with admiration. But no matter what class I was in, design class, sculpture class, drawing, basic drawing, Don, I can always tell when you did it. It was always certain things I always did, which no artist ever wants to hear. But it's
I
it's a
mean, artists
style.
have a particular style. They have a particular look, the way they go about things.
Well, yeah, and I do, but mine are really firmly entrenched when I start, and I never break away from it. Neil Adams, I think it was Neil Adams, said one time that it's what it's your limitations is what creates the style. And he says, I don't always know if I agree with what he's saying on this all the way, but he said there's not a such thing as style. It's your limitations showing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do know some people that develop style, and some, like I said, in mine, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
But in Zio, like, there's a lot of things that amazes me about it. I highly recommend people listen to this episode that she was on. I'll have it linked on here. But I think she was 27 years old when she came to the United States. But when we talked to her, all I saw was a California girl. She's still quite young, but it does a lot of things as a comedian. She does translations, writes comedy for video games. I mean, she wears a lot of hats quite well. And then she's putting out the comic books, which makes me extremely happy that, people are making comics out of the love for them. But they're both so completely different. A lot of facets to the human. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Some fantastic stuff from her.
so
So Don,
anyway,
I
the
want to talk to you
campaign's
for a
over.
second.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Talk to you for a second about lazy writing in mainstream comics. As everybody who has listened to the show for 5 seconds knows, I'm a huge Ghost Rider fan.
Yes.
Now, they're doing some new stuff with Ghost Rider, and I will admit, I'm not reading it. Okay. I'm waiting for trades. Okay. I've become that guy. I'm waiting for the trades so I can catch up and everything. but there's a lot of discussion on various different groups that I'm on about how they're going about creating new writers, how they're connecting different spirits of whatever to different characters. And one of the things that I saw people complaining about was the fact that Danny Kench, the 80s Ghost Rider, is now carrying what's called the spirit of corruption. Johnny Blaze is carrying the spirit of vengeance. Okay. So now instead of being two parts of the same thing, they're completely separate entities that possess them. But the problem that people are having is that the new spirit in Danny behaves in absolutely no way different than the original Spirit of Vengeance Ghost Rider that possessed him, or Noble Kane that possessed him. So it's just like I just have to ask, when you see a major change done to a character, such as something like an alternate power set or a different person taking on the power set. Have you ever noticed writers backsliding to the behaviors of the previous?
Yeah.
I got Don thinking. He's sitting
Oh,
there.
I was thinking about it, but yeah, it's always, yeah.
Yeah. It's lazy writing. And I hate to say this, but Marvel and DC are infamous for this.
Always.
It's you guys out there that are writing for Marvel or DC. Is it the writer or is it the editor? Is it the person in the big chair making those decisions against what you're writing? Or, it's just another feather in the cap to indie comics for me, to see them take a character, alter it so dramatically, but then do nothing about the alteration. Completely ignore that it happened, basically.
That tends to happen though when you have different people coming in and writing it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is in the 70s. And when I'm saying this is a time that I didn't particularly care for. I started reading or saving comics in 71. And that's when you didn't really get Marvel comics. I didn't really see them very often. But the DC comics, they depowered Superman. Who was it? Denny O'Neil. They brought him in to write Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman. His Batman he did with Neil Adams, and those were something. Wonder Woman completely depowered her. Paradise Island went away, and she basically became Emma Pill from that TV show, The Avengers, which it's okay, but that wasn't Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Superman, there was some kind of a sand creature that siphoned off half of Superman's powers. And it was confusing to me because there was 3 Superman titles. Each one had a different editor. And so Action Comics was written by one writer. Superman was written by another writer. And then there was also World's Finest, which is Superman and somebody else. It used to be Superman and Batman, but by this time it's Superman and somebody else. And the Sand Creature, I think, was in Superman. He wasn't in the other ones, but he was dealing with the fact that the world needed a Superman, and he only had half his powers. I don't know, the Sand Creature, as time went on, he started turning into a Sand Superman, and eventually a Sandy Superman. It was this pure sand-shaped Superman. And
was this about the time Sandman came out in the Marvel universe?
There's a Sandman in the Marvel universe? Oh, no. He was from the 60s in Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly.
No. Oh, I got you. No, that was in the early 60s. I'm talking about 71.
Okay. I'm just curious because I'm
1977.
sitting there. I'm like, so basically, they gave Sandman Superman powers.
Oh no, oh, I got you. No, this guy, he didn't have sand. He wasn't like the Sandman of Marvel. He was a creature that they was sand, and then he started taking Superman's form. As the story went on, when I got out of the Navy, I was reading in one of those. There's a lot of magazines about comics, and I don't know which one it was, but they were talking about that storyline,
Mhm.
and I don't know. As an adult, it sounded kind of neat. As a 9-year-old kid, no, it wasn't. Those comics were all civil unrest and everything else, but one thing they were talking about was the person writing this piece was saying it was really interesting for Superman depowered and what he was doing. Well, then they dropped that whole storyline. They brought in Elliot S. Megan and Cary Bates to write them, and Elliot S. Megan had Superman go in the center of a sun-going nova. So, I mean, he was more powerful than he
Yeah.
ever was before. Well, it's because he had different people coming on, and they just ignored what had happened.
Yeah.
And if you read comics, mainstream comics, that's going to happen. I mean, they just sometimes completely ignore what came on before.
I realize that, but
And
if you're featuring the concept in your storyline of this and then ignoring it, that's where my problem comes in. Again, have not read this yet, but my understanding is that much of this is happening incongruent storylines right after each other. So they're just going right from one storyline to the next, and still talking about the fact that this spirit of corruption has Danny, but not behaving his possession form in any different way. So it's an aggravation. I mean, I'll have judgment when I actually read the book myself when the trades are available, but I never liked the spirit of the corruption idea for Ghost Rider anyway. I don't know if you've seen the design, but basically it looks like they took the helmet from Wolverine when he had the adamantium injections and threw it on top of a Ghost Rider and gave him a sword. It's just mindless. It's mindless design.
all I keep thinking when I remember we talked about before, there's a new Ghost Rider on roller skates. There's one of the Cerberus, the
Yep.
car, and then I guess the two motorcycle. I'm thinking, I want to see Team Ghost Rider. I want to see all of them as one team.
Your wish, sir, may be granted sooner than you know. Interestingly enough, let's talk about a little more Marvel news. Marvel has just introduced Midnight. It's called Marvel Midnight. The idea, as we understand it, very, very limited information so far, is that this is going to basically be a darker version of the Marvel universe centered around more, let's say, horror and supernatural elements. That's kind of the idea that we're getting at the moment. I don't know if that's actually what this whole new indicia is going to be, but certainly should be cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going back to your Ghost Rider thing when it said it just happened right away. Is this the same writing team and everything? The same creative team?
That's part of something I don't know right now. I've got to look into it a little more. I there was just a big thread on one of the message boards today. Just people complaining about it. And I mean, these are deep Marvel fans that deep Ghost Rider fans that know this character inside and out. They know the storylines. They've been reading it forever, like me. The problem is that we are tired of the inconsistency. And Marvel and DC need to stand up and take some notice of this. You know, They need to realize that, yeah, maybe this is a lesser character that isn't raking in the dough like X-Men or Deadpool, but the readers still deserve a little respect and a little consistency in the storyline. Just thought.
Yeah, that's I don't know what to tell you. I'm used to reading mainstream comics when I was a kid, and
Yeah.
the
I know I
worst
sound like a
one.
newbie complaining, don't I?
No, it's I
You
understand.
just picked up comics in the last 2 years.
It's a different thing because I keep thinking when I was a kid, I love Legion of Superheroes, and they did this, but the one that stays with me was in the Avengers. Jim Shooter was writing it, and George Perez was drawing it. And George Perez, I thought, was the greatest thing in the world. I'm not saying that it hasn't changed. I love George Perez. But they had the Guardians of the Galaxy join the Avengers,
Mhm.
and a team up. And it was some big, I think it was, I can't remember, it was Korvac or something. But I was showing a friend, one of my best friends, we were at the store, and I said, "This is the greatest comic ever." And 2 issues, it was just flabbergasting. All the images George was drawing and all this cosmic stuff going on. And this is the greatest. Well, then George Perez didn't draw it anymore. Somebody else did. And I mean, and I think it changed a few times.
Yeah.
And it just, I don't know. It's just the most disappointing thing to this day. It just stays with me. But that happened a lot in the 70s in mainstream comics.
Yeah. And I know that. I mean, and I've been through plenty of artist changes in books. It happens in the indie sphere too. It's it's the writer changes that then ignore the last, like, let's say this is a new writer takes over on issue 6, and then they completely ignore everything that happened in the first 5 issues. Well, if that's how the story's going to go, why don't you just end it at issue 5 and give this writer a brand new issue 1 to start from? You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
makes sense to me, but apparently not to Marvel.
You know, all I can think, I'm being selfish because we're talking about Ghost Rider stuff, and I'll start talking about comics I like. But Coyote, that was my favorite. It's always running joke that whenever I see the first 2 issues of Coyote, I always buy them.
Yep.
I give them away, but
Yep.
I always pick them up. But there was Steve Englehart, who was, an Avengers writer for Marvel, left and came back. And Steve Leolola drew the first 2 issues. Now, it was a graphic novel from Eclipse. Again, it was Steve Englehart's character, but Marshall Rogers drew that. But when it became a regular comic book, Steve Leolola drew the first 2 issues, and they are, I think, 2 of the greatest comics ever created.
Mm-hmm.
And it was bone crushing disappointment for me when the 3rd issue came out, and it was Butch Geis, however you say his name. And I mean, saying that, I'm not putting the artist down because he's good, but he's not Steve Leolola. And then after that, the 4th issue, they got the regular artist, and he was I can't remember his name, but he was good. But he was Steve Leolola. And there's a whole YouTube video this guy talked about Coyote. It basically, what Steve Englehart said on the 3rd issue, he wrote up in the beginning an introduction to it. And he said everybody was flabbergasted by the first issue that Steve Leolola did. Well, the first 2. So they were just visually incredible. And he said, but you don't understand. It took 6 months to draw that first issue.
Yeah.
And it took him 4 months to do the 2nd issue.
Yep.
And he says, how am I going to make any money doing this? So he replaced the artist, I understand, but basically the book ended up getting canceled. I think Todd McFarlane did 2 or 3 issues at the end.
Wow.
I think that was some of his first work, but they said that the book never found its footing. I like I said, I bought the first 4 issues and then stopped. But it's because I still think if they just would have bid it, which I mean, saying that it's easy for me to see, but if they could have put that out and continue with Steve Lealola, regardless if it was late, I think it would have been one of the finest collections you could ever read. I think as well as it, comic books weren't put in trades at the time. It wasn't something they thought about. But and I mean, it's easy for me to see. I'm just a guy that likes to read comics. I don't understand the whole nuts and bolts business, but I don't know. Some of these, like the Algota, I always think the Algota should just be a really nice trade that people can pick up when they discover it.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened either. Don't listen to me because all the books I like ended up getting canceled.
Yeah, it happens to good books though. So, well, what I find interesting is the artists run behind
Yeah.
and they lose the gig. The writer runs behind and they don't lose anything. Take a look at Mark Millar. That guy cannot get a book on time if you had a gun to his head. I swear every single series that man has written has had a late book or numerous late books in it somewhere. But yet they just keep going with him. They just keep going with him. You know?
Oh, is this with the mainstream publishers or this with him? Because he's got his own thing.
He's got his own thing that he does in his own time, is what I understand. But when he, all right, Kick-Ass, for example, that book, I don't remember what issue it was, but it ran late. So late to the point when it finally showed up, I don't know, over a month later, I forgot I was even getting it. I had so many other books to read that this issue shows up and I'm like, oh wow, I forgot about this book. I mean, don't get me wrong, it ended up being a great series, but to be that late on your own book, man, I mean, come on. I don't know. If I was a publisher and Mark Millar came to me with a series, I'd be like, great, I love it. Finish the whole thing first, then we'll talk.
No, it's see all the stuff that he's done. I found in trades. I found we talked Starlight. I found Starlight in the dollar box, 2 issues of it. I thought, what is this? Goran Parlov drew it. I ended up finding the trade, and a lot of times I find this stuff in trade. I think he did Secret Service, which I picked that up. It was good. So I'd never seen the lateness, but was he late when he was doing the regular Marvel comics still?
I want to say maybe he was, because I remember having an entire conversation in regards to how late his books are in that shop. And somebody that worked there pointed out several different books that have been late over the years. But I couldn't quote exactly which ones those are. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm talking crap and sitting here currently reading The Authority. Okay. So, it's not like I find his writing to be bad. I just sometimes wish it would come out more timely.
Yeah, I don't know. In the past, when I was a kid, the comic publishers had to get the book out monthly. And that's why we used to get a lot of fill-in issues. Not when Jack Kirby was around, in Marvel, but later, all of a sudden you get a reprint issue right in the middle of the storyline, sometimes 2 or 3, because if the book was late, they had to pay the printer a massive fine.
Yeah.
So, and that's why you started getting guys, and I don't mean to put them down, but like Sal Buscema could be quite good, but you were getting rushed work.
Yeah.
A 22-page comic done in a day or 2. And that's when you started getting inkers like Vince Coletta, who could be really good, usually was not, because when they gave him the book, it says, we need this out. And the stories were he'd have his whole family sit at the kitchen table working on the comic.
That's crazy, though. I mean,
Well, you know, DC took that man as an art director,
yeah.
which I find astounding. But they said the big reason was they wanted him to ink books that were late and get them, and he did. He threatened people, if your books are going to be late, I'm going to start inking them to get them out on time. And Mike Grell wrote and drew The Warlord. It was a bi-monthly book, and then they made it a monthly book. It was popular, and at the time, it was one of my favorite comics when I was a kid. And what made Mike Grell so good was his inks. He had really flashy inks. And Vince Colletta started inking the book. And it was one of my favorite books. And I just remember buying them just so upset and disgusted about it because he was ruining the book. You see the covers, and Mike Grell inked the covers. And there was I just listened to some interview with Vince Colletta, or somebody talking about Vince Colletta, but I think it was Vince Colletta. But basically, Mike Grell hated it. And he told him, if you can get the book out on time, you can start inking it yourself again. And I guess he did, but it just wasn't the same. He just couldn't do that kind of work on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but that was a big thing then, whereas now I don't. Alan Moore, one time I heard him in an interview talking about he was never concerned about deadlines. And he says, I don't mean to, say it's disrespectful to anybody, but he says, I don't think it was really disrespectful to the comic people because he says in the long run, it didn't matter. It says nobody's going to pick up a Watchmen trade. Well, this is really nice. It's too bad Dave Gibbons was 2 months late on the third issue.
Right.
In the future, it's like we're just talking about Mark Millar. I pick them up after they're done, and I think, well, this is actually pretty good. But
yeah, but back in the day when I was a regular local comic book shop buyer, there's nothing more aggravating than expecting a book and not getting it. I mean, that's aggravating as all get out,
Oh, and we went through that many times.
But now I'm sitting here thinking to myself, what's funny about this is I have none of these reservations with Kickstarter. Like any crowdfunding comic that I've gotten behind, I have no reservations about, like, I expect this book at this point, at this time, because they said so, because I do know delays happen in the process, in the printing process, in the binding process, in the shipping process. I know delays happen. I've worked in that industry. So it's just funny. I guess I have more patience for an indie creator running behind schedule than I do major publishing companies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think with the independents that you're supporting, or we're supporting, I'm not to the extent you are, but I think that their projects, it's theirs. That means something.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think they've been working on it a while before you discover it. So, you don't, when you're saying late, they probably have things under. I know a lot of people we had. Lori Calcaterra, when we first talked to her, I think she only had 6 pages done in black and white. That's what, we read. And one time I mentioned that's all we read because that's all I had.
Well, and that's part of the Kickstarter
she's been
process.
consistent. That book's been coming out.
Goes to pay for the artists. So
exactly, that's what she's doing. But I mean, saying that, once she got running, it's been a steady cruise.
Yeah, you can't slow her down. So,
well, if you can say Path of the Power Rider is a steady cruise.
That storyline is not a steady cruise. That is, that storyline is not a steady cruise. That storyline is an unpredictable twist and turn through a zombie apocalypse.
Boy, that's the biggest understatement. No matter what you say, That's yeah, it's just amazing how it just keeps sliding sideways.
Every time, every like the last issue, the last issue, I'm like, in my head, because that was the issue that she gave us the writing portion before it was
Yeah,
put into
yeah,
art.
which I enjoyed immensely.
Oh, it was fantastic. But at the end of that, I'm like, she just killed her main character. She just totally, and then you read that issue and you find out what she actually did, and I'm like, I don't know if this is worse or better. Wait a minute, what happened? it, it's just so much fun reading that book. It really is. Uh, Speaking of which, hey, let's throw this out real quick. Things on Kickstarter right now. Right now, you've got a new issue of Crit going on. Right now, you have a new issue of Bigfoot Knows Karate. And very soon, we're going to be having a new Kickstarter for the one and only Miss Lori Calcaterra with Path of the Pale Rider. Keep your eyes open, everybody. Lots of stuff coming. The summer is going to be full of reading.
Oh yeah, yeah, those are all good.
But now, let's give them some music, and we'll be right back.
You got it.
You can hear our most recent 20 episodes on iTunes. If you would like to hear our older episodes, you can find them on our blog. Just go to bunchofdorks.com and click on the Cyclops.
Joe Dimension can be found on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. If you like what you hear, you can subscribe, rate, leave a review, tell a friend, or like us on Facebook. Thanks for listening.
That was Winter Atlas. We played them before. I learned of this artist through my offspring, and we're playing it for you once again. There'll be a link on the blog if you want to find more.
Nice.
Anyway, all right. I actually want to talk about this before when you and I were together. I like that better, but I'm going to do it now.
Okay.
This is another find from Oklahoma, and it's called Sapiens.
Ooh, graphic history.
Yeah, Sapiens, a graphic history. This is the second one. This is number 2, and at the bottom it says The Pillars of Civilization, which is the name of the series. There's 3 books in this. You remember when I was talking about the cartoon history of the universe, and I brought some of those books in?
Yeah, I remember those.
This is like a sister series to it. I mean, it's not the same people, but it's the same size. And I have to admit, I bought this because the cover caught my eye. I like to see ancient cities. This is a drawing of an ancient city with, a god, like a hieroglyph or something. I always jump at that stuff. But I kept thinking, I don't know. I'm not going to buy a book this size just because I like a drawing on the cover. But I picked it up and looked
you
through it.
will.
So I thought this actually looks kind of good. So I picked it up 3 or 4 times. Finally decided to get it. And this is it's created by 3 people. There's I'm going to say their names. I apologize. Yuval Noah Harari, David Vander Meulen, and Daniel Casanavi. I think I'm saying the name's somewhat correct.
Okay.
This is actually, I looked it up. It's a series of novels, or it's a book, a prose book, basically about the history of the world.
Okay.
And then I think the second one of the other people wrote the script for the comic, but this guy was involved in it. The writer of the novel was also writing for the comic, and then one of them is the artist. Now this book really makes you think. It's stuff you kind of knew, you studied, but they go more into it. But here's some of the interior pages.
Oh, I love the art. Is that the art throughout the whole thing?
Yeah, yes, which is done by the same cover artist.
Yep.
But it's it's a woman. It looks like she's wearing a sari, from India, and then a young girl and her father, Caesar, and they're talking. They're going to a cultural center, and I don't really know who the people are, but the woman in the sari, she's an older woman, and she's a scholar. She's a learned woman, and actually, they all seem like they're highly educated people. But the girl, talks. I guess they're all supposed to meet, and they go to the show. Well, it's a play, and they have a minstrel, narrating the thing. Then it goes on, and it's talking about how the people were hunter-gatherers. They went, found food, they hunted for food, but they also gathered food.
Right.
Now, there is one thing. One of my students, his mother came in, when he was too young to drive, the mother would come pick him up, or the father. And one Saturday, the mother came in, and she's reading a book called Brain Rules. Well, after class, we were talking, and we started talking about the book and what it was about. It wasn't what I thought. I thought she was playing mind games with my student, like Brain Rules, seeing how he thinks.
Oh, yeah.
But one thing I said was, this is around 2012, and I just said something. The conversation led to, I think the Mayan calendar was ending in 2012.
Yeah.
And, they were putting out that disaster movie called 2012. And I was reading some woman talking about if enough people believe it, it'll happen.
Hmm.
And I've always kind of read these things that if enough people think something, it'll occur.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine, he was convinced that, this goes into quantum physics, but the world's kind of time was like a donut. You always read about different dimensions and how it's all happened at the same time. It's not a linear thing. And but he was talking about one thing, things kind of change when enough people think a certain way. I do understand influence and stuff. Anyway, this book was talking about all these things, and the woman handed the book, so you need to read it. So I did. It was one of the best books I ever read. But it starts out about how humanity started in the Serengeti.
Mm-hmm.
And it said, basically, they were hunter-gatherers or gatherers. They went finding food. And the human body is designed to walk 12 miles a day searching for food.
Yeah.
Okay. If you live in modern civilization, it can be difficult to walk 12 miles a day. I mean, you can do it, but it's just not set up for it. And I was always moving before. I'm not working anymore. And you can tell I've put on some weight. Even though I still work out, it's not the same intensity I was doing before. And there's not really any place. I'd walk around neighborhoods and stuff. And one time I decided to walk up Belcher Road. I'm never, ever doing that one ever again.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wouldn't do that.
That was really terrifying.
Yeah, that's not a road I would walk.
No, as a matter of fact, my daughter got on it. Why would you walk on that? Well, it seemed like it was a long walk, but
yeah, it is.
Anyway. But anyway, that's what they're talking about here is the people went, and to play, they find wheat and they start cultivating planting the wheat, eating the wheat, and it goes on about how wheat basically changed the entire human landscape. And then we started building they go into great detail telling you about what happened. And basically the people found if you just throw wheat somewhere, it grows. And then later they started talking about they found if they tilled the land and planted it deeper, it would grow better.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, they started building permanent establishments and working the harvest. And they even go into, they didn't have as many people, and they would breastfeed kids till they were about four years old, the women.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that they only had kids like 4 or 5 years apart. And they said that when they started staying put, it changed to where they would wean the kids earlier because they could give them goat's milk or a gruel, wheat gruel or something.
Yeah.
And then because of that, all of a sudden the cycle would change and they could have a kid earlier. So they started having kids, every 9 months. Population expanded. And then that's when it goes on. I mean, in great detail, it goes on and on about how you started getting people put in charge. And then, started having priests, temples taking care of all the harvest, the wheat, the grain. And they kind of talk about grain, farming was the enemy. If you ever read the Old Testament, Cain and Abel, Adam and Eve's sons, Cain was a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
Abel was a shepherd.
Yep.
And if you didn't know the story, Cain said something to Abel. It says, I had a good harvest, so I'm going to offer the sacrifice to God. And then Abel said, I'm going to do the same thing. So he took one of his finest young lambs and sacrificed it. And God accepted Abel's humble sacrifice. Cain was kind of arrogant about his, like, look what I'm giving you. And God didn't accept it. And Cain was so jealous of that he killed his brother Abel. And all through the Old Testament, they always talk about shepherds. It's all, even Jesus Christ mentioned shepherds, but, the Israelites for a long time were wandering. And it seemed to me like they didn't really hold farming to an esteem. I know they did it, but shepherds was always a thing. And that's what this book is talking. And they talk about the pros and the cons and all the things that happen. I love this kind of stuff, the drawings, and then it gets into pop culture because it has these pages. It's like some of the newsletters you get for health insurance and stuff like that, walking through, or like USA Today. But he said this case, it says agricultural revolution was a trap. What has the father character talking about agriculture and certain problems, and they have this other guy, which is a master of capitalist, captain of capitalism.
Yeah.
And he's talking about it's all a hoax and it's this and that, and this is all good. But it tells different sides of stuff, and these things happen every once in a while. It's things that you kind of learn in school, but I mean, you're just kind of rushing through doing these things. But it tells you a different perspective. Saying all this, I don't want to go back to the gathering days.
No.
I mean, and completely detrimental to us because I can't carry all these comic books everywhere.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to carry comics when you're a hunter-gatherer nomad.
I helped my kid move from South Carolina to back here to Florida years ago, and always lived upstairs. I was the one carrying everything down to the truck, and every time I go, this one's really heavy. They were all really heavy, and I thought I was going to die. And I was, anyway, we got home and we were putting her stuff away. And I said, she had 2 short boxes of comics. She had a collection. And I said, what happened to all your comic books? I thought you got, I was wondering if she got rid of them. I said, no, I didn't see the boxes. She packed them in boxes with ceramic clay.
What?
Why didn't you just leave the boxes alone?
Wait. Does your child have long boxes or short boxes?
Short boxes.
And they chose to put those boxes inside of another box with a bunch of heavy clay.
Oh, yeah, ceramic clay. And I'm thinking, okay, no wonder. I was feeling bad because I even kind of before I went out there, I work in a lumber yard. I was loading trucks all the time. And I worked for the pro department. And she said, what's going to be hard? Oh, kiddo, your dad's a pro loader. No worries. And I never should have said that.
You may be a pro loader, but your kid is not a pro packer. Oh my God.
Oh, I felt a little better when I realized how much I was carrying down because why am I so tired? I'm handling concrete all day.
Man, I get such a kick out of your kid, but damn it, I mean, seriously, comic boxes are heavy enough.
Well,
and I have moved long boxes, heavy boxes. Oh.
Yeah, it is. It is heavy, and you're trying to be careful with them. But in this defense, though, I see the logic to it because it's less boxes. So, get them down there. And, one, I shouldn't have said, don't worry, your dad's a pro loader. But
all right.
I remember we started having, this is at the end of COVID, everybody's still masked. And women from the apartment complex were walking by. They saw me working all day. He says, oh, you've been working hard. It says, well, hopefully you'll take you out for a nice steak dinner. Well, one, I didn't want to go to a place where everybody's walking around unmasked. And 2, all I wanted to do is take a shower and go to bed.
Yeah, right. After
I would be, unless somebody was willing to chew the steak up and spit in my mouth. But Comics are heavy. But going back to this story, that's when they talk about was humans would leave a lot less of a footprint have they stayed nomadic.
Mm-hmm.
If you just moved around instead of clearing forest and this and that. And that's another thing you're talking about was how clearing areas, as you know, started to really affecting the world.
Yep.
And they were, this thing goes on in massive detail, taking you things. I'm going to locate the other two books. I never heard of it, but it's one of the finest books I've ever read. One of the finest comics.
Nice.
And like I said, I would rather we talked about it while you could look at it. But I'm gonna bring the thing up now. I highly recommend this series. I've never seen it except at that one store, but they're available. And like I said, I'm gonna order the other two.
Yeah, I've never even heard of it. That's really cool.
Me neither.
All right, Don, we got time for one more book before we got to end this, man. You got something else?
Oh, me? Okay.
Of course you do. I see stacks behind you.
Yeah, that's a contention. My wife, one time she's in so many books. Well, that's, it's one I talk about all the time. Gru. There's another Gru series from Dark Horse. And I say this, it seems to me like almost every episode, Sergio Organiz is talking about Mad Magazine. We get letters saying somebody would complain about something. I've been reading Mad since, it first came out. And he said, that's sad, if you never grown on and just keep reading the same thing. Nevertheless, since 1982, since 1982, I've read Gru. I've got all the issues that's come out. I never bought I guess it was in Image, one of those Image Presents books or something. I guess they had a storyline, and I guess it maybe a Dark Horse. I never got those, but I had all the comics and graphic novels, and they're always good. I mean, there's some of the series now that comes out. I mean, I like them, but I don't love them. But this one's something. It's The Prophecy is the name of it, and it's always Gru and Roberto show up somewhere. But this one, the people don't seem to know who Gru is. Usually, everybody runs around scared to death, screaming, "It's Gru!" and he destroys the whole town. But in this one, the town's in really good shape, the city, and they have a high priestess, a prophetess, and she's basically living in the lap of luxury. Had a lot of servants and stuff attending to her, but her prophecies are always correct, and they always listen to her. But she was talking about there's something incoming that's coming, and then something comes up and somebody stops it. Oh, this is the prophecy. And it's like 3 times in this issue, she gets upset. That's not the prophecy. That's not the one. But everybody's like, oh, we took care of it. We're all okay. Well, I'm guessing it's Gru, but maybe it's not, because on the cover it has this giant
giant thing. Yeah, what is this?
I just read the first issue of this, but I'm thinking, I can't, the sage shows up in it. And I'm not going to go into more of it to spoil it for anybody, but you can pick up Gru at any point.
Any point.
Yeah, they're great. And there's a lot of that stuff. Just to tell you some Gru publishing history, Destroyer Duck, which is Steve Gerber put out, because he's the guy that created Howard the Duck for Marvel Comics, got mad and left, or fired, I'm not sure which.
Nobody is.
And but he basically had a lawsuit against Marvel Comics for Howard the Duck. Well, they put out a thing called Foog, which is Friends of Old Gerber, and they had a portfolio to raise funds, and they put out the book Destroyer Duck. Jack Kirby drew Destroyer Duck. I think it was 8 pages. And then they had other artists that contributed work to it. Shirley Flanagan from National Lampoon, and Sergio Organiz did a 3-page story of Gru the Wanderer. There was no words; it was all pantomime. but it was basically Gru saving a woman tied to a stake, and there was a four-armed lizard man, giant lizard man with samurai armor. And Gru fought him, and then there was a surprise ending, and I absolutely loved it. And then later, Pacific Comics was advertised in the comic, and they did 8 issues, and then Pacific was no more. They did a special issue with Eclipse Comics, which is supposed to be the 9th issue at Pacific, and then Epic Comics took them. And what was special was Epic Comics was a Marvel imprint, but they were only creator owned. But they were only in comic shops. But Gru got newsstand distribution. And they did Gru for 120 issues.
Yeah.
And monthly.
No.
No repeats.
Yeah,
no
I was just about to say no repeats.
And it was, when he was at Pacific, I really enjoyed that. I remember my friends Britt and Rick, we were both talking about it, laughing at that first issue. But every issue he did, I thought, well, okay, he's going to run out of ideas. These are nice, but he's going to run out. Never stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just Sergio Gomez, it's Mark Evanier, writes with him. But 120 issues. Then he went to Image, when Image is wanting to become Image, what they are now. And they were doing work besides what the founders were doing. And they did 12 issues with Image. And then they went to Dark Horse. And with Dark Horse, it's always been a series, like, a 12-issue series, 5-issue series, 6 issues, something like that.
Yep.
I've never gotten tired of reading this. It just keeps going on. And I mean,
just a fun book,
It is a fun book.
Gru is just kind of this dopey ass, means no harm unless something needs to be harmed. Just lovable freaking doofus of a character. Gru comics are a fun read. They just are.
Yeah, it is fun. And if you read all the stories, even though I had a high school English teacher, I was out of high school, but I stayed in contact, and her son started reading comics. And they were going to this comic store in Amarillo, Texas, and they discovered Gru. And I guess the whole family was reading it. She goes, he's so stupid. And he is absolutely stupid. But there's things in that comic. I like when he goes to different places, even though it's all Sergio Gomez, they all kind of show a different culture. There's a different style to how the people dress in the town, and how they make things and how the town's decorated.
Yeah.
But at one point, it was in the Pacific days, he got on a ship. And if Gru's on a ship, he sinks it. That was my favorite issue with Captain Ajax. And then Captain Ajax appears at other times. And when Gru started getting the dog, Rafferto, with him, they found if Rafferto's on the ship with Gru, it doesn't sink. Although nobody really realizes why. There's a lot of things like that. Another one, I guess there was something, they said, well, it's right here in the contract, and they kept showing it to Gru, and then Gru admitted he can't read. Of course, he's stupid.
Yeah.
He was embarrassed about it, and everybody, whatever, it destroyed the plot of the story. Well, later on, he's trapped in this deep cavern, and there's a guard there. By this time, the guard's an old man. And he realized he's just surrounded by all these books. So while he's stuck there with Gru, he teaches Gru how to read. And after that, Gru could read. I mean, there's things like that in the book that show growth. And even though Gru doesn't have a straight thought in his head, he does read and can read.
Mm-hmm.
And he has another character. It's Mark Evanier, but it's Weaver. And Stan Sakai's and he's the scribe. So Weaver and Scribe are walking around. Weaver comes up with tales. The scribe writes them down. And he wrote a whole series of books about Gru. Anyway, when at one point there's a library. There's 4 issues where they're in a library, friends of the library. And while they're in the library, Gru's trying to find something to read. And the librarian says, well, he's a learned man. He goes, well, here's one. I never really cared for Weaver's work, but you might enjoy it. So Gru's reading about himself, and at one point he realizes about him, and he's like, I'm going to have some words with Weaver. I don't know. It was hilarious. But I mean, even though it's they make a joke, they only have 5 jokes in the series. It's always the same. It's not.
No, it's got a lot of good jokes in that series. And yes, he reuses jokes, but in such great ways. I love Gru.
I absolutely love Gru too. And I'm happy. And when you look at the book, there's no backslide. He puts all the effort into it. It looks just as nice now as it did then. I always say this to some artists. Joe Kubert was one. Mobius was one. He's never stopped being good. And that's the highest praise I can give. And I understand sometimes you get older, the enthusiasm's gone, your abilities are waning, but it's just Serge Aragonés never stops. And if you get anything, Dark Horse is putting out Space Circus, a comic series he did. And there's Boogeyman. He stomped Star Wars. There's a bunch of stuff out there Serge Aragonés did. I recommend it all, but Gru is the crown jewel.
Oh, yeah.
And with that, my friend, we're going to end.
We're going to end this show. That's right. Everybody, it's so nice having you back, hanging out with us, listening. But until next time,
read
more comics. Yeah, that didn't work. See you guys. Do you want to be part of the show? Draw us a fake comic book cover, and we'll use it to promote new episodes online.
If you'd like to promote your music, send us your MP3 and you can have a musical spotlight on our show. Plus, we'll add your link on our music page.
We have 3 t-shirt designs. Find them on the sidebar of the blog. Listen to the show. Wear the shirt.